Well, welcome to the webinar, everyone. Glad you were able to join us. This is Mark Bennett, the COO of ID Life. I had a little technical difficulty, but we are here. We are live. We are active on the very first Lunch and Learn of 2020, where the whole idea behind what we do here is to share some information and try and simplify things. Most importantly, try to get down to some knowledge that you can use yourself, that you can share with others, and that you can share with people that you care about so that they can get the results that they're looking for. You know, we figured there was no better way to start the new year and the new decade. You've always heard about the Roaring 20s, and well, now we actually get to experience our own version of the Roaring 20s starting now. At least we're 9 days into it. Well, we figured there's no better way to start the year than to go into some healthy weight loss secrets. You know, a majority of the people that try weight loss journeys or weight management journeys during the year, and you're going to see that people have a tendency to do that quite often, usually do so based upon a certain belief system, based upon information that they received, or based upon things that they read on the internet, a best friend knew, a trainer told them, or something else, or some book they read. But the reality is a lot of the information is just wrong. So, you know, the whole idea behind what we want to do here is give you quality information that you can actually use. So we start out with, what are your 2020 goals? A lot of people made resolutions just 8 days ago. How are you doing on those? You know, where are you on your goals for 2020? Are you still on track? Are you starting to miss them? You know, the whole idea behind this is to first understand what we're talking about. You know, the word diet is to cause to eat and drink sparingly or according to prescribed rules. That does not sound like fun. You know, it just doesn't. When you pull up Webster's and you see that, you're like, man, this does not seem like a good thing that I'm about to go on. In fact, the old adage is, you know, in the word diet is the word die. And there's a reason why. It's not an attractive term, nor is it an attractive definition. So there has to be a better way. And a lot of people, when they start on this journey, they have that same concept. I've lost the same 30 pounds 3 times, or, you know, the same 20 or the same 10 or whatever. The reality is it's not. It is by far not even close to being the same 30 pounds, because what happens when you start to lose weight is you lose not only fat, but you also lose lean muscle. Then when you put the weight back on, you're just putting back on fat. And then when you lose it again, you're losing fat and you're losing lean muscle. And as you go back up, you're only putting on fat again. As you're going to see today, that's very important when you see how much your metabolism or your burn rate of food, you know, kind of your internal engine, is dependent upon the amount of lean muscle on your body, and how more fat results in a slower metabolism. So what happens here is it becomes harder and harder for you to get back to your body set point. And we'll talk about what body set point is during today's presentation as well. I will tell you, typically these presentations are only about 20 to 30 minutes. Today's presentation is going to be longer. 1, it's recorded. 2, it's the first one of the year. And 3, there's a lot of people that actually need the information that we're going to talk about today. So we wanted to make sure that we covered all the various topics. First, if you're one of those people that's 8 days, 9 days into your resolution and you've already kind of started to waver or kind of given up, hey, you're not alone. 73% of people on their weight loss resolutions have given up by January 31st. In fact, most of you, if you joined a gym in late December or early January, you notice something. By February 2nd, the parking lots look much, much different. You know, it's an interesting adage, but when you actually look at the stats and figures, you know, you'll see that gyms are paid for by the people that don't show up, not the people that do. And the reality is, what we want you to do is, we don't want you to make resolutions. We want you to create habits. One of the things you're going to hear consistently through all of these Lunch and Learn trainings is the fact that if you focus on the 40 inches around your waist, you will constantly get back to where you always have been. However, if you learn that you need to focus on the 6 inches between your ears in order to permanently affect the 40 inches around your waist, you can actually make lifelong, lasting change in your health and wellness journey. Another way of saying that is, if you change your habits, then you can have a permanent transition in your health and wellness. And that's what this is all about. But about habits, did you know that it takes you 3 weeks to break a habit? So think about that for a second. It takes you 3 weeks to break a bad habit. We are 8 or 9 days into the new year. Have we broken the habit if we're already starting to waver our old habit of doing whatever that we were going to change? Have we even gotten close to breaking that habit if we're already starting to waver in day 8 or 9 when it takes 3 weeks to break it? Well, the other thing is it takes 6 weeks to develop a new habit. Okay, so if we're on this New Year's resolution instead of a habit formation, you would now be into mid-February. But here's the one that you really need to understand. It takes 36 weeks to hardwire that new habit into your daily routine. Think about that. Has anyone ever really stuck to something for 9 months? That's what we're talking about. If you can stick with something for 9 months, then now all of a sudden becomes part of your daily routine. This is why it is so hard to change human behavior. This is why, all of the get skinny quick schemes are based upon, that short window of time where somebody says, hey, you can lose 15 pounds in 30 days. It just melts away and all these other things. The problem is it doesn't change the underlying reason why people started to lose weight in the first place, which is to change those habits. Because to change your habits will result in permanent transformation. But it takes time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. In fact, it's something that you really have to be intentional on. So this is a new year. You have an opportunity to be a new you. With that comes some obligations, but with that also comes the need for knowledge, because knowledge is power. Knowing the things that we're going to go over today is actually going to help you. And more importantly, it's going to help you help others. And that's what this is all about, because the reality is most education begins when you forget everything that you learned in school. I love giving Einstein credit for a lot of the quotes that he said, because he said some pretty genius things because he was a genius. And the reason why is because so many people's limitations or so many people's results are dictated by their beliefs, not by reality. So the purpose of this is to give you that information, give you that knowledge so that you can make informed choices. First, somewhere between 90 and 95% of all diets fail. Think about that. If you failed on a diet, and I just, my own personal story, I was an 8% body fat athlete in college, running 8 to 10 miles a day with 400-pound eating habits. Yeah, you heard me right. I was an 8% body fat athlete, but I was running 8 to 10 miles a day. I looked great, but I had the eating habits of a 400-pound man. 10 years later, I was no longer an athlete in college. I was an attorney sitting behind a desk at 307 pounds on my way to the 400 pounds because I had the same eating habits. See, what happened was my workout routine was allowing me to have bad habits that weren't necessarily showing up then, but 10 years later, they had materialized and I was showing it. And I was on my way to a much different situation. Tried for 6.5 years to lose it because I was focused on the 40 inches around my waist rather than changing my habits. In other words, I wanted to eat the same things I always ate, but get a different outcome. They call that insanity. And the reason why is because I kept failing. I kept failing because I kept doing what people told me I needed to do. Then I needed to realize that I needed to make change. If you failed in a diet, guess what? You're not alone. That doesn't make you a failure. All that means is we may have approached it the wrong way. We may have tried these quick things. The reality is what we have to do is we have to change our habits in order to permanently affect our waist. At any given time, in America, roughly 50% of people are trying to lose or manage their weight. 340 something million people in the United States. That means a little over 150 million people at any given time are trying to either lose or manage their weight. So again, you're not alone. There's a lot of people out there. America is not healthy. 74% of our population is overweight and or obese. There's a lot of sickness. There's a lot of disease. There's a lot of gut health issues in America. And it is something that is rampant. A lot of that has to do with our food supply and other things that are for another day and another discussion. Remember earlier we showed you the empty gym in February? Well, 67% of gym memberships are never used. See, a lot of times what ends up happening is you join the gym, you pay that initiation fee, it has that low monthly fee, And you know it one day you're going to go back to that gym. So the last thing you want to do is cancel because you don't want to pay the initiation fee again. Instead, you're paying that monthly due over and over and over and over again. That's why the gym can keep the doors open, because even though the parking lot is empty, 3/4 of their revenue or 2/3 of their revenue is coming from people that never dawn the door. How about this one? The typical dieter makes 4 attempts per year to lose weight. Think about that. 4 times a year, people try to lose weight. And I mean, they make a conscious decision. You know what? This is going to be the time. I'm going to get it right this time. Unfortunately, most of the people that are on this cycle try to do it the same way every time. Or, what I mean by the same way is it's, hey, I'm going to try this little thing, or I'm going to try that little thing, or I'm going to try this fad, or I'm going to try this thing I read on the internet or that a friend told me about. Instead of making habit changes, they focus on fads, gimmicks, books, and other things. How about this one? Americans spend more than $2.5 billion a year on artificial sweeteners. The reason why? Because most people that are trying to lose weight the old-fashioned way are counting calories. They see these artificial sweeteners as zero-calorie alternatives to take care of their sweet tooth. So if they don't count, then they don't count. The reality is, though, they count significantly. And if you look at the science and you look at the research, what you'll find is these artificial sweeteners are a huge contributing factor to the obesity epidemic that we have in the United States, not to mention a lot of the illness and sickness that we have associated with heart disease, diabetes, and the rest. We also spend a little over $14 billion a year on weight loss surgeries. We have a doctor at ID Life on our scientific medical advisory board who tells a story about how he had a patient with metabolic syndrome who came to his office, and he told him that he was at least 50 pounds away from needing surgery, that he wanted to talk to him about alternatives and changing his diet and lifestyle. And the patient came back 30 days later for his next checkup, and he was 53 pounds heavier, and he asked the doctor if he was heavy enough now to get the surgery. See, so many Americans think that that's the choice. That's the easy way out. And what they really need to do is understand that even if they have the surgery, if they don't change the habit, they're going to go back right where they were. Yes, you may have a temporary solution. Yes, you may look fine for a period of time. But if you don't change those habits, you are going to end up in the same place. So the idea here is make sure before you take this route that at least you attempt the habit change plan. How about this one? Americans spend more than $60 billion a year on diets. Now, the reason why I show you this, because we're talking about diets, we're talking about, healthy weight loss secrets. And of course, right now, I'm just giving you the information. Remember what I told you. Information is power. Knowledge is power. You're getting the baseline. You're understanding the significance of the problem that we have. Right here, we're talking about $60 billion spent. But the next 2 numbers that I'm going to show you are significant in understanding why that $60 billion is so asinine. The first one is that we also spend $100 billion on junk food every year, and we spend over $300 billion a year on fast food every year. So to look at it in a different visual, because I'm very much a visual person, as are 80% of people, it's literally the angel and devil on your shoulder. We're spending a lot of money on diets, but we're also spending even more money on junk food and fast food. I tell people all the time that 98% of people listening to this webinar are going to eat a meal from a fast food place that they get in a bag through a window into their car in the next 48 hours. 98% of people on this webinar are going to do that. 50% of those people are going to eat that meal in the car. So that's just where we are as Americans. We have these habits. We do these things on a regular basis. And as you can see, we're spending our money there as well. So what's the answer? What do you actually need to do? What are the secrets? Let's kind of jump in. What are the most popular weight loss methods? Okay, think about that for a second. First, fad diets. How many times have you seen, you got to try this new diet? How many books do you see? How many new infomercials have you seen? How many internet things have you read about the new diet, the new fad, the new craze? Calorie restriction and reduced calorie diets. This is probably the number one. This is what most people go to. is some form of calorie restriction or reduced calorie diets. Eating smaller portions. You see this one all the time. How about using low calorie or reduced calorie foods and beverages? That's where you get all your low fat, your no fat, your low carb, your sugar-free, your artificial sweetened, those types of things. And exercising. Exercising is also something. And the reality is the secret is it's a combination of some of these things, but I want to go through some of these things to show you what most people fall into. First, what is the most common diet fad ever created? Well, the answer is simple. It's called the good old-fashioned balanced diet approach. If I do this, then I can do that. Now, some of you are laughing right now. Some of you are giggling and you're saying to yourself, yep, that's me. If I just do 30 minutes on the treadmill, then, my little stop by Chick-fil-A or Whataburger or whatever on the way home, that doesn't count because I just nullified it. Well, let's actually look at the numbers, because when you actually see what the balanced diet approach does, you can see why people fail. 54 minutes is what it's going to talk to you of squats to get that Coke out of your system, or 88 minutes for that one donut. Chips and queso, hey, you just have to swim for 130 minutes. Not a big deal. Hey, you want that Frappuccino from Starbucks? Hey, that's 170 minutes of Pilates. We're gonna jump in there and get us a good 3-hour Pilates session going. I'm sure everyone's ready for that. Or, we're going to get that super special, that one that has the burger and the nuggets and the fries and the smoothie and everything else. Well, good luck, because you get to run the Boston Marathon to get rid of that thing. You're one injury, you're one bad day, you're one missed gym session away from sabotaging all of your efforts and all of the things that you've done. Because see, what you've done is you've established eating habits based upon a workload that is non-sustainable. Remember what I told you earlier, my own personal story, 8% body fat athlete, because I was running 8 to 10 miles a day with 400-pound eating habits. I had horrible eating habits. Those habits resulted in me becoming extremely obese as a very young man, not too far removed from being a college athlete. And it took a long time to figure that out and make that change. Also, calories are not all created equal. This is the problem with the calorie counting method. People need to understand that it's quality, not quantity. If you look right here, fats. This is a picture of a stomach and 500 calories and what it looks like. There's how much room in your stomach fats will take up. Processed carbs, proteins, and fruits and vegetables. You can see fruits and vegetables. One of the things that is probably the least consumed thing in the American diet are the things that would fill the stomach the most on a 500 calorie basis, and that's because they're the highest quality food. You get the most bang for your buck, so to speak. Fats have the least. That does not necessarily mean that fat makes you fat. That is not what I'm saying. Fats are necessary for brain health, brain function, and a lot of other things. Processed carbs, not a lot of reason to have those. Okay, but remember, there's a big difference between processed carbs, or what we call simple carbs, and complex carbs, usually found in your fruits and vegetables. And then, of course, proteins. So a lot of people will try the calorie balance method. So if you don't try the balanced diet approach, you're going to try the calorie balance method. This is where you're going to count your calories. You're trying to keep a balance sheet. So let's look at what that looks like and why it doesn't work. First, how do you calculate a calorie deficit? Have you ever thought about that? It's an extremely complex formulation. And I'm not sure that there's a lot of agreement in it, to be perfectly frank. There are some simplicities to it, and people have simplified it. But the complexity of what it really takes to get there is eye-opening when you actually jump in and look. First, calorie counting. Okay, all kinds of apps, features, functions out there if you want to start counting calories. But look at this. Food labels are imprecise. In fact, the average is that there is a 20% error rate on food labels. Okay, not intentional, they're just errors in there with regard to how many calories equate. A lot of that is because the systems on which they are based upon old data and old information. The quality of food, the soil contamination, depletion, and other things associated with food, and what an ingredient amount equates to in calories is got some errors in it. And I'm talking about the national database system. As a result, there's about a 20% error rate across the board. Calorie absorption varies 10% on average between people. Are you a high metabolizer, low metabolizer? What's your genetic makeup? What is your BMR score? I mean, there's a lot of different things, but there's a 10% error rate on your absorption capability of those calories. How about meal prep? Food prep affects calories by 35%. Small little things that you add in or don't put in, or the source of the food that you put in, could make a huge difference in the actual number of calories that food actually contains. And then, of course, gut bacteria can influence calorie intake by plus or minus 150 calories. So again, you may not be getting to those deficits that you think that you are, because that's the issue when you're talking about counting calories. How about your basal metabolic rate, your BMR? This is one of the things I mentioned that is also a factor in your ability to absorb certain nutrients as well as to burn certain nutrients. And that's what basal metabolic rate is. It's basically your burn rate. Well, here's how you calculate it. Okay, this is how complex it is. 66 plus 13.75 times your weight in kilograms. If you need to convert that, you get your weight in kilograms by simply dividing your weight in pounds by 2.2. Plus 5 times your height in centimeters, if you need to multiply your height in inches by 2.54 to convert into centimeters. And then you subtract 6.8 times your age in years. This is what we call the Harris-Benedict principle from 1919. I'm sure we haven't learned anything in the last 101 years, but that is how we calculate BMR, and that gets you to a number. Anyone familiar with this? This is my before, my after, and my after. In other words, you lost weight and then you regained your weight plus some. You ever wonder why? We're talking about BMR right now, so now is a good time to understand and explain to people the before, after, and after pictures and what is actually happening. So here's what happens. Day one, you have a BMR baseline. Okay, that means you have a metabolic burn. Your BMR is your ability to burn calories if you didn't get out of bed and all you did is wake up, stayed in bed all day, and then went back to sleep. Okay, so that's basically what you're going to burn without any movement, without any exercise during the day. As you begin to lose weight on your journey, your BMR slows down. Okay, so it does not stay consistent, does not stay constant. So just because you had a BMR when you started, that does not mean your BMR stays constant as you start to lose weight. In fact, your metabolism actually slows down to day 90, which most people then quit and start back on the cycle to go back up, because 90 days is usually the amount of time somebody will actually give to a change before they start their old habits back over again. So then on the way back up, guess what happens? The BMR baseline stays down at the bottom. By the day 90, in other words, 90 days back to getting back to where you were, your BMR is still down there in the basement. So you're back to the weight that you were, but your BMR is not where it used to be. In other words, you're not burning the same amount of calories that you did without movement before. Now you're burning a lot less. So by day 120, when your BMR catches up to you, you have gained all of your weight back plus some. And now you have established a new set point. This is now your new weight. So I have now explained to you why so many people have that before, after, and after picture, or explained that they've, lost weight, gained it, plus some back multiple times. That's actually what is happening and why BMR is so critical to understand. Now, how about exercise caloric burn? Now we're talking wearable devices. So a lot of people out there, they jump into the gym, they take that wearable, or they go out onto the road and they're going to do their walk or whatever, and they rely on that wearable device to give them the information to know that, hey, they've achieved the goal of burning X calories. Usually by burning X calories, that gives them the ability to eat Y calories. Because again, what are we doing? We're calorie counting. And by calorie counting, this gives us permission to go eat those things that we want to eat. Again, remember, it's all habits. So how did we get there? How do they actually calculate these things? So for men, it's calories burned equals the age times 0.2017 minus weight times that number plus heart rate times that number minus 55.0969 times time divided by that number. For women, it's obviously a little lower. Not that it's fair. That's just the Journal of Sports Sciences, how they do this during some maximal exercise. That's how a lot of these calculators are based. They're based upon an algorithm. or a formula, if you will, that gets you that number. Well, here's the thing. According to Stanford University School of Medicine and published in the Journal of Personalized Medicine, these wearable devices are amazing at monitoring your heart rate. Okay, they're really, really good at it. In fact, the error rate, if you look at the Apple Watch, is astoundingly usually below that 2%. So it does a really good job, as well as some of these other well-known wearable devices. But if you get over to energy expenditure, the error rate is significant. We're talking anywhere from 50 to, of course, the Pulse-On device has almost 100% error rate. So be very careful in using your wearable device as justification for what it is you're choosing to eat or consume, because if you're really looking at it for kcal burn, you could be sabotaging everything that you're doing based upon some false information. So what does it really need? Well, I mean, what do we really need to do in order to understand how to lose weight? Well, it's BMR, whatever that is for you, plus your calorie burn, if you could actually figure out how much you actually burned, minus your calories consumed. Okay, that's if you can really calculate those. That equals your caloric deficit. And for every 3,500 calorie deficit you have, that equals 1 pound lost. The problem with trying to figure all this out, as we have now shown you, is trying to calculate BMR, much less calorie burn and calories consumed, is very difficult because nothing is constant. You know, when all variables do not remain constant, the ability to calculate these things and get to a real number is extremely difficult. That's why quality of food is more important than quantity of food, because if you're counting quantity, and that's the only thing you're focused on, a lot of the information that you're basing your judgment, decisions, and eating decisions on is flawed. And that's why so many people are not getting the results that they're looking for. In fact, if you look at the metabolism effect, as calorie consumption goes down, BMR drops as much as 20 to 30%. Remember, I showed you that dreaded, weight loss cycle and how, it takes 120 days for it to bounce back to wherever you are. Just realize when you start to, reduce your calories or what they basically refer to as the balanced diet approach or the calorie counting approach, your BMR score is going to drop anywhere from 20 to 30%. That's just the way our bodies work. Our metabolism slows when we start to lose weight because our body takes that and as basically danger. So it slows down the metabolism to try and retain what it has so we don't go into starvation mode. In fact, as calorie consumption goes down and metabolism slows, the body goes what we call catabolic, and it begins to store fat as a self-preservation response. That's just the body's natural tendency to do that. So that's why we need to do things the way that we are designed. In other words, all of us are genetically made unique. If you do those types of things based upon your genetic sequence and genetic code and do them the right way and the effective way and feed our body what it's looking for and what it needs, we can avoid this catabolic response. And we can continue to be fat burning machines and not worry about this catabolic effect that so many people go through. In fact, I've been talking about body set point for some time, so let me explain to you the theory behind body set point. In essence, as your hunger goes up, okay, so you're calorie restricting, okay, so that means hunger's up because anytime we restrict calories, we get hungry, our metabolism slows, okay? Anytime our hunger goes down, in other words, we're fully satiated, our metabolism goes up. That's usually because we're full, our stomach is full, our body responds by increasing metabolism to burn the fuel in our body. So what do we want to do? We want to create that set point or that body weight component where we're not hungry, so our metabolism continues to burn. A body set point means you have a predetermined weight that your body wants to get back to. Think about it. You went on vacation for a week. You didn't eat the greatest. Within about 2 weeks of getting home, what happens? You're right back to your weight that you were before you left. Even if you put on, 8, 10 pounds while you're on vacation. Hey, and that happens to everybody. Don't worry about it. But the reality is this. The body wants to get back to what is called its body set point. Now, that body set point goes up anywhere from 1 to 2 pounds per year as we age. And the reason why is as we age, our metabolism slows. Because our metabolism is slowing down, that means our BMR is slowing down, which means we're not burning as much when we're not active, which means we're starting to retain more of the food that we're eating on a regular basis because we haven't changed our habits. So as a result, we're putting on a pound or two per year. Our body set point is changing. So the whole idea behind what we want to do here is we want to reset our body. How long does that take? Well, 90 to 120 days. So you have to stick with it for a longer period of time for that body set point in the body to understand, okay, this is our new norm. The metabolism will re-regulate itself to get back to what that new normal is. And it's going to be based upon how hungry you are, as you can see, because metabolism is going to be affected as to whether or not you're starving yourself to get to where you want your new body set point to be, or whether or not you're actually filling your body with the right kind of fuel, in other words, high quality food, so you're not hungry, so metabolism will rebound faster. So again, a little secret tip for you. Oh, I'll back up. Public service announcement real quick. I want to make sure that everyone gets this because this is super important because there's so much of this right now. I can't tell you how many videos and other things I've seen lately about this, and you're never going to see this from ID Life, but I want to make sure that you hear this as a PSA. There is no such thing as a magic weight loss pill. At best, these things are useless, and at worst,